is building a high performing team just an ideal, or is it really something that's achievable?
It is actually achievable, but I
Okay.
do understand why you ask and pose the question because I've dealt with teams at all levels. I mean, we started our property management company by literally putting up our shingle, saying that we had our license and taking any piece of garbage with a roof on it. And so the talent that we could attract at that moment versus now is so tremendously different that when I was in the weeds with some of those like really rough houses and apartment buildings that we were managing, I wondered also, can you really have this incredible team that inspires you daily? I mean, is that really possible for the small and medium sized business? But it absolutely is if you can provide people with jobs where they're learning and growing and a strong vision that they can get behind. If you have those two things and then you work with your team on making sure that it's executed effectively, you all can go to work and truly love the experience of working with these people. And I promise it's possible.
Well, that's an interesting perspective because I suppose to your point, it's kind of in the eyes of the beholder and where you are in the growth and development of your own company and the image that the owner wants to reflect within the business too. Like you said, in the early stages when there might just be a few properties and maybe they're not the best, let's just say that, it might be challenging to attract those high performing individuals, but you got to work through that, right? So maybe, I mean, how do you look at
It,
them? The standards maybe a little lower there than they might be like further down the road, I guess.
for me personally, it's just been such, I think business ownership is such a head game of the person owning the business. And
Mhm.
it really has been for me, and I can only speak for myself, a personal growth journey. And when I decided that what I was tolerating was no longer tolerable for me, the business grew and the people I worked with grew. So it really is like, what do you think you deserve? What do you think your business can achieve? And if you really think that your business, maybe it's small right now, but if you could sell an employee on the vision that you have and the growth that they'll see and the person they're going to become while on your team, I mean, you can tell that story even if you're managing out of your garage.
Uh-huh.
And if you can tell it successfully, you can get those great people on a team. So it really is that head game of what you think you deserve and that what you're willing to tolerate.
Okay, so what's the secret? If you're talking to your average person who maybe is a company owner and they're struggling with this, how do I build a high performing team? Where do they start and what should they do, right? In terms of building a high performing team for their property management company.
Okay, so back to the vision. I honestly think if you want a high performing team, you want to kind of play the pretend game. Like, what would it feel like to work at a place that the people that you want to attract would like to work at? So, for me, that starts with actually, weirdly enough, the tenant experience, the vendor experience, and the owner experience.
Hmm.
If high performing people don't want to be dealing with fires every day all day, so honestly it starts with making those different interests not yell at you. And if you can create and if you can reverse engineer from the experience of the people that you work with, if you can make that experience very high end and then reverse engineer to the people that you're working with and what are those job descriptions. I go back to the
Mm-hmm.
being very clear about what the job is, what winning looks like in those roles. And if you think about it very holistically like that, I think that's the first place you start when you're designing a high performance team. And so as you're designing those job descriptions or redesigning them, like maybe go back to if you have a few employees and you're like, I don't really know what you do all day, or I don't really think that we have our roles clearly defined. Whenever companies are stagnant or just having kind of a rough moment, going back to those job descriptions totally is the clarity I think a lot of companies need.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have that clarity there, that's when you can finally start asking people to perform better and you can have KPIs and you can say, these are the expectations I really need. They're all written down. It's very organized. This is what I need from you. And then when you're asking for that accountability, that's when you say, this person's working or not working for me.